So here's a wild thought. What if we handed the keys to an entire economy over to an AI? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this isn't just a hypothetical anymore. It's actually at the center of some really serious economic research. The question is shifting from could we do it to what happens when we do? Could an AI, believe it or not, actually be a better pilot for our economy than a human?
Now, to get why anyone would even consider such a radical idea, all you have to do is look at Europe's economy over the last couple of decades. Honestly, it hasn't exactly been a smooth ride. It feels more like a constant scramble, trying to stop the next big crisis before it happens. It's just this relentless cycle of shocks that has policymakers pretty much in a permanent state of crisis mode.
So that begs the question, what if there's a better way? What if we could stop just reacting to every single crisis and start, intelligently anticipating what's next? What if there's a smarter way to get through this storm? Maybe with a machine learning how to fly the plane? All right, let's dive into that. To really see why an AI pilot is even on the table, we've got to understand this economic tightrope that Europe has been walking on for a long, long time. And I mean, just look at this timeline. It's just one thing after another, right? The dot-com bubble bursts, then bam, the global financial crisis hits. Then we get the pandemic. And right after that, a massive inflation and energy crisis. It is a constant barrage, and every single one of these events forces governments to make these unbelievably tough, super high-stakes decisions on the fly. And right at the heart of all this struggle are the rules. You've probably heard of this one, the Maastricht Treaty's big rule that says a country's government debt shouldn't go over 60% of its GDP. Seems like a simple, clear number, doesn't it? Well, actually sticking to it, that's a whole other story. And yeah, here's the proof in black and white. When a real crisis hits, those rules, they tend to just go right out the window. I mean, look at Spain back in 2009, or Italy and France during COVID. The rules are there, sure, but the reality of a crisis has a funny way of making them impossible to follow. Okay, so why is it so incredibly hard to stick to the plan? Well, it gets into this really core economic idea. Turns out, an economy can kind of exist in one of two very different states. It's a concept called multiple equilibria. Let's dig into what that actually means. Think of it like two different roads an economy can go down. On one road, you have the good equilibrium. This is where you want to be. The economy's growing, investors are confident, interest rates are low, and debt pretty much takes care of itself. It's a virtuous cycle. But then there's the other road, the bad equilibrium. And this one is a really nasty spiral. High debt scares off investors, which pushes up interest rates, which, you guessed it, makes the debt even worse. It's a total vicious cycle. And that right there is the multi-trillion-dollar question that the researchers behind this study, Kundaze and Semler, are trying to answer. How in the world do you keep your economy on that good path, especially when life keeps throwing these massive shocks at you? So what's their big idea for staying on that good path? Well, their solution is pretty radical, to say the least. What if we could train an AI to actually be the pilot? The tech that makes this possible is called reinforcement learning, or RL. And the key thing to get here is that you're not programming in a bunch of if-then rules. No, this is all about learning by doing. The absolute best analogy is to think of an AI learning to play a really complex video game. Except the game isn't, Call of Duty. The game is called the economy. The AI tries a move, say, tweaking interest rates, and then it gets a score, a reward or a penalty based on what happened. The specific algorithm they used is called Soft Actor-Critic, or SAC for short. And here's how it works in a nutshell. First, it observes the state of the economy, things like inflation and debt levels. Then it tries out a policy mix. Then it gets a score based on the results. And then, the crucial part, it updates its own strategy so it can get a better score next time. Now imagine it doing that millions and millions of times. It just keeps practicing, getting a little bit smarter with every single attempt. Okay, so how do you even know if this AI approach is any good? Well, the researchers did what any good scientist would do. They set up a virtual showdown. They pitted their new AI against a much more traditional, by-the-book method. So in one corner, we have the old school approach. It's called nonlinear model predictive control, but let's just call it the planner. The planner works by using a very precise economic model. It basically assumes the world is predictable. And in the other corner, we have our AI, the soft actor critic, or the learner. The learner doesn't need a perfect map of the world. It learns as it goes through trial and error, and it's built to handle all the randomness and shocks the real world throws at it. So what were the results? How did the planner do? Well, it was really good at some things. It created these nice, smooth, stable policies. It was fantastic at getting inflation under control. But it really struggled with the hardest part of the challenge. It just couldn't quite manage to wrestle those super high debt levels all the way back down to that 60% target, especially for the southern economies. It was, very neat and tidy, but just not quite effective where it mattered most. And what about the learner? Well, its policies looked a lot messier, much more volatile, a lot more up and down. But, and this is the absolute key, it actually worked. The AI succeeded where the planner failed. It found a way to get the debt levels down toward the target in both the northern and southern regions. So maybe that chaotic-looking path is actually a more realistic picture of what it takes to steer a real, messy, unpredictable economy. But honestly, the most interesting part of this whole thing wasn't just about which algorithm won the showdown. It was about what the AI itself learned when the researchers threw the toughest possible scenario at it.
What the simulation basically showed is that everything, and I mean everything, boils down to one deceptively simple relationship. It's the difference between R, the interest rate you pay on your debt, and G, the growth rate of your economy. R minus G. That's it.
This one little formula, R minus G, basically creates a tipping point. It separates the world into two completely different economic universes. In one universe, where growth is higher than interest rates, so G is bigger than R, the economy is fundamentally stable. The debt is manageable. The AI can figure out a way to get you to that good equilibrium. But when interest rates are higher than growth, when R is bigger than G, the entire game changes. The fundamental math is now working against you. The economy is inherently unstable, and it's on a one-way track to that bad equilibrium. So this sets up the ultimate test, right? What happens when the economy is already in that bad equilibrium? Can this super smart, constantly learning AI still find a way to save the day, even when the underlying forces are all pushing it toward a crash? And the answer is a pretty sobering no. It can't. When the researchers flipped the switch and made the interest rate higher than the growth rate, even this incredibly sophisticated AI couldn't stop the debt from spiraling completely out of control. It essentially learned that in this situation, there are no good moves left. The game is just unwinnable. And you know what? Maybe that's the most important lesson of all. This AI isn't some magic bullet that can solve any problem. Its real power isn't in winning an unwinnable game. It's in how it captures that messy, trial-and-error process of real-world policymaking. It shows us what might work, for sure, but maybe more importantly, it shows us the hard limits. It shows us the lines that, once crossed, even an AI can't fix. So that leaves us with this really big question to chew on. Is the future of AI and economics about it becoming some kind of co-pilot, a trusted advisor that helps us see the board more clearly and navigate these crazy complex choices? Or is its greatest gift something else entirely? Is it just about showing us, with cold, hard data, where the hard limits of our control really are?